Hi, I'm Rue.
Hi, I'm Janelle. Welcome to episode 8 of Cocktails and Compliance.
Woohoo!
Yay!
It's been a minute. We have missed everybody.
I was going to ask if they missed us.
Well, of course they did.
Of course
How could
they did.
not?
I mean, it's been a while. I think our last one was in October. Live
It was at Nama. That's right.
So much has happened. We have
So much has happened.
So much to talk about.
But first,
But
shouldn't we talk about what our cocktail today
we
is?
absolutely should. I'm so excited.
I'm not sure this really classifies as a cocktail. It is actually a beer, and we are drinking Yuengling Hershey's chocolate porter. It is a once-a-year holiday porter that they make with Hershey's, and it's really hard to find. So I was pretty happy to be able to get them. So cheers, Janelle.
Cheers, Rue. So basically what I heard you say is this is like limited edition, special vintage. And, you know, we just missed Valentine's Day, and last year we had bubbles and chocolate, so now we just have chocolate in our drink.
There you go. What do you think?
Oh, that's delicious. I'm so excited. Okay. Also, you may have noticed we have, if you can't see us, sorry, but we have some new swag. So anyway, this is our new Resman swag from our resident kickoff meeting that we had in January, which feels like a really long time ago.
Yeah, how about that? It is almost March. It's crazy.
That
this
is
year
nuts.
has flown by.
That is nuts. So anyway, thank you for the super soft little marine layer hoodies. Thanks, marketing team. Yay.
Yay.
Yay. All right. So like I said, it has been a minute since we have done a podcast, and there's a ton going on. So Rue, my favorite thing to talk about.
Bump, 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 tracks 203A. And guess what?
Well, in the words of Ice Cube, it's on like Donkey Kong. So I never thought we'd actually get to this point on the podcast. We're like, hey, guys, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Going to do it.
It's happening.
Yeah, here's a fun fact. We got about 48 hours notice of a mandatory industry working group call that happened last Wednesday. So it is on. And it's interesting because what drove this, we kept saying, oh, there's RAD changes and all this stuff that needs to happen for the RAD contract. And really what drove this was HOTMA.
Which is really funny because we've said for years that RAD was going to be the one driving it and that it had to hurry up because of RAD. So guess that means that the HOTMA changes are probably even more significant.
Well, they are significant. And here's a fun fact. So HOTMA, because, you know, we love our acronyms.
HOTMA.
I know. I keep saying Mahatma in my head, and it's so wrong. So HOTMA is the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act of, get this, 2016.
Well, you know, that was only 6 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
It takes a minute.
Or 6 years. Either way. But they published a final rule on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's
Day.
Yay.
So if you've paid attention at all to HOTMA since, you know, 2016.
And I don't know how you couldn't because it's all over everywhere. Everywhere you look, there is something about HOTMA.
Right. So you're going to see a whole lot about HOTMA from now through the end of the year. But if you recall, the way the legislation is written is that HOTMA has to be in effect on the first of a calendar year. So
guess what that means?
Well, one would think, oh, that means it'll be effective January 23rd, and I just have to be ready for January 1st, 2023 or 2024. Jeez,
but that's not right, though.
But no, that's not right. So what that means is if you think about your January, I can't believe we're talking about 2024, which is why it messed me up a minute ago.
Right.
But you think about those ARs, when do they have to be done? October 1st. So guess when this all has to be done?
October 1st.
Yeah. So that's the goal.
I'm guessing you have a timeline here. Do you have a timeline or no?
Yes.
Okay. Of course you do.
October 1st.
No, I meant like.
I know what you meant. I know what you meant. So the timeline is we started talking about it last week. And so now we have a series of 7 biweekly meetings from, this was day after Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's to us. So from February 15th to May 10th, to prioritize the 12 to 15 HOTMA systems requirements that have to go into 203A. So we've already started talking about it. We have till May 10th to finalize it, finalize the spec. Then Trax is being updated in pieces. The goal is to start testing in the Trax system July, August timeframe, but it's got to be completely rolled out. And not only site software, but contract administrator software also has to be updated by the end of September. So it is all live. So normally, we get the whole here's your spec. You've got 6 months to
That's a
code
pretty
it and
short
test
time
it.
span.
Right. Because normally we've got the 6 months to test and code. And then we've got the 3 months to implement. Not this time. So
Everybody, hold on. It's going to be a fun, crazy ride.
yeah, buckle in. So on the HUD website, on the multifamily housing page, there is a whole page dedicated to HOTMA. Go figure. So there's a lot of resources there. The spec is posted
Probably
there.
lots of gray area.
There is a little bit. And so that, again, that goes back to the whole 7 biweekly calls that we're having to nail this down. So basically, like I said, the goal is to prioritize the system requirements, and whatever doesn't make the cutoff date goes into Tracks 203B.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's cute.
That's cute. So really though, talking about that timeline and the specs, and so Janelle said something really important here because we're not even completely sure of what is going to go in right now, right?
I mean, we have an idea of what could go in, but we don't know what's going to make that cutoff date.
Right. That's what I mean. So what the point I'm trying to make here is don't everybody panic and think right this very minute that you have to learn HOTMA.
No, not yet.
Because it's just not quite ready. So later this year, May-ish, then you'll probably you will start seeing training classes that are offered on HOTMA. And then, of course, your software vendors are going to take care of the requirements in the software for you. So we'll be ready, and I'm sure everyone else will be too.
I had to take another sip when you said that we had to get the software ready. I'm like, I'm just going to need to keep drinking from now.
She's going to need some drinks.
I'm going to need some drinks. Yeah. So just to give you guys a preview, like I said, there's like 12 to 15 things. This is going to feel like speed dating because I'm going to rattle this off like really fast.
Okay.
Go. Buckle yourselves in. Here's a very high level look at what's going to change. HUD is going to introduce a $100,000 asset cap that'll be adjusted every year for inflation. So that's interesting because right now, there was a lot of conversation about, well, what if someone sold a home and it was worth this much and then they're trying to qualify. So now they're capping that at $100,000.
So it's okay for them to have just extra money out there and it doesn't count towards it is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if you have more than $100,000 in assets, you're probably not getting into housing.
Oh, did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but again, stay tuned till after May. So they're also establishing eligibility requirements related to a family's interest in a dwelling or home suitable for occupancy that can legally be sold by the family. So again, looking at that $100,000 cap, how do homes factor into that? There will be new rules for foster children and foster adults. Applications and pre-applications will be updated. The leases will be updated. Income inclusions and exclusions will change. There's going to be new codes added for income associated with some new verification sources that are also coming out. This will be super fun. The Section 8 student rule income inclusions and exclusions are also going to change. So that means they're now going to start adding in the cost of books to the definition of tuition and some other mandatory fees. So watch for those student income changes.
I think that's fair for students, though.
Yeah, books are expensive.
Yeah, they are, for real.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Super fun. Speaking of someone who just graduated from college a while back, and books are expensive, especially when you don't even use them. And good luck when you try to resell them. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. So asset inclusions and exclusions are also going to change. So there's going to be asset codes to determine which assets are included when you apply that asset limit, that cap that we talked about, that $100,000. Deductions are going to change. So these are going to turn into percentages and time frames for when the percentages can be used. There's new hardship exemptions for medical expense, disability assistance expense, and childcare expense deductions. So this one is an interesting kicker and super fun from a coding perspective, I'll say. Interims. So right now, when there's a change to your adjusted income of $200 a month, that's going away. And now the income recertification is based on a percentage of change to your adjusted income.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's fun. And then there's going to be related to interim recertifications. There are new effective date rules related to timely reporting. There is a new rule allowing owner agents to use income from the prior year when creating ARs. And then there's this new introduction of de minimis errors. So, de minimis errors are errors that result in a difference in the determination of the family's adjusted income of $30 or less per month. So, that's going to be really interesting to see how all that plays out. But again, back to speed dating. Sorry, I got a long list. I got to keep going. HUD will continue to make the verification process easier by introducing new verification methods and sources, which may or may not be in the track spec, but it may or may not result in software edits so that you have new verification methods to select on your drop down of how did you
yeah,
verify
right.
this. Because you can now use the tick to provide income information. And if you verified it on the tick or then you can apply it. So
Okay.
it's going to be interesting. All right.
That's only for properties that have ticks.
Right. Right. But for layered sites,
Yeah.
it gets
For
a little
layered
tricky.
sets, it is a little bit easier.
So let's try
though.
to make
Yeah.
it a little easier. So those are high level software changes, right? But for fun, there are also things that you have to think about on the site in terms of your policies and procedures not related to software. So on top of having to figure out all of that, I learned that. Here's some other fun things. So the EIV income report use requirements will change. So viewing
Oh.
those reports at interim becomes optional. The 9887 will not have to be executed every year as long as the head of household, co-head, spouse, and all adults have signed the forms. Your tenant selection plans have to be updated. Your EIV policies have to be updated. Your house rules may need to be updated. Your hardship exemption policies will have to be created or modified. You have to develop a formal policy for those. So, lots of policy changes, lots of things for management companies to think about. And let's not forget forms, shall we? Because we've
Oh,
talked about forms.
Is forms going to hold this up?
Nope. Nope. I don't think so because, again, we're now marching to that January 1 deadline. So it can't hold it up any more than it already has.
Well, let's be honest, because I really feel like forms was just an excuse. Oh.
Oh, we're going to take a drink. Pause.
I think it was, though.
Just keep drinking, Rue. Anywho, so from a software perspective, you're going to code them the way that they are currently proposed and hope that they get approved as is, or if there are changes, they're very minor. So we're talking about our 5.9, our 5.9A,
Uh-huh.
our 9887 forms.
Uh-huh.
I'm already mentioned the leases are going to need to change and be updated. So lots going on there. So the bottom line is your staff needs to be trained on all the details of HOTMA. They're going to need to be trained on what changed in your software and how this now looks in your software. Like I said, you've got policy and procedure documents that have to be updated. So it's a lot. Having said that, don't panic. There are lots of people in the industry who are gearing up as we speak to provide training on HOTMA. So think about the people that you know and use for training frequently. Mary Ross, Jenny DeSilva. I'm sure other HUD trainers are going to be doing this as well. So stay tuned. We're going to talk
I'm
at the
sure
end
Scott
about
Michael
something
done
we're
it.
doing too.
Costello's
Yeah.
going to be doing it.
Yeah. Zephyr will be doing
Yep.
it. Everyone's going to be offering training on this. So,
But the really big point is please take some training because your software
Yes.
is going to be updated to reflect these changes, but there's a lot of things outside the software that you guys need to be aware of.
absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. So in the meantime, while you're gearing up and you want to hear more about it, for fun, you can go read that track spec. That's a good time. But if you'll go to the HUD website and go to that HOTMA resource page, again, it's on the multifamily housing page. Go read that. There's some videos. There's a lot of information. So check it out because it's a lot.
Well, so Janelle, that brings me to another question too, because there are quite a bit of rad things that are also going in 203A still. Is that correct? So it's going to have the rad stuff and the HOTMA. So it's going to be quite a big release.
Yeah, if you were listening, you didn't see me nodding my head as I'm nodding along to Rue. So I forget not everyone sees this. Yes.
But you're lucky if you do.
No kidding, because we're matchy-matchy today. Lots coming. Again, that track spec is posted out there too. So if you want a little preemptive look,
Ugh.
a little sneak peek, go take a look at it. But it's coming. Finally. It's here. It's
Yay.
here. We told you we would tell you when we knew. It's here.
Now
Brace
we're going to have to
yourselves.
figure out something else to open with, though.
Oh, we'll talk about something. I'm sure. There'll be something.
There'll be something.
I'll come up with something new. And I'm still going to milk this until like October. So,
I mean, it hasn't happened yet, so.
yeah. One other thing, update on the PBCA procurement
Oh, yeah.
that we talked about
Yes.
before I
yes.
move away from HUD. So I got really busy in February because not only did they decide that we were going to have a tracks release, they also published in the Federal Register on February 2nd advance notice of proposed rulemaking and request for comments related to the procurement process. And it's out for comments. Comments are due April 3rd. I know lots of people have already submitted comments, but now they're asking for some more comments. So we're going to need to keep an eye on that and see what happens here with this whole procurement process.
HUD got busy. Were they back in office?
I don't know. I mean, everybody's going back in office, is what I hear. So I actually did hear that government employees are going back to the office pretty soon. But yeah, they got super busy. I don't know if they were like, holidays are over. Let's get it.
Let's go.
So, yeah. And I know part of it too, honestly, has to deal with midterm elections and,
right.
All of that, which we're going to talk about too. So
I put that in there because Resman is about to be back in office, and we're really excited. We're going to be back in for 2 to 3 days a week, and it's going to be really great to be able to collaborate in person again with our teammates and to see everybody. We're really looking forward to it. So,
well, and let's be honest, when we were in office last week, we were celebrating somebody's birthday, and I got ridiculously excited that there was cake. So I hope being back in office means there's more cake.
More birthday cake.
Yeah, I am excited about that, and there is something to be said for the side conversations that happen when you pass in the hall and just missing that contact. And even if you did it on a Teams message, it's just more fun in person and that collaboration. So, yes. But if we're not in the office, we'll be in the airport. So,
oh, man, no kidding.
So we just came off. That's why it's weird to me that it's already almost March, because I feel like we just had the holidays and then we all got on planes. And so time kind of stopped for me. I lost track of what day it is, what time it is, because you and I, we went from Florida and then I went to Vegas and then we went back to Florida, and it's been crazy. So we had the car meeting in January, which we always do. And car always picks a fun, warm location for their January meetings. And so this year was no exception.
Right.
It was in Isla Morada, Florida. That didn't suck, guys. Let's be honest.
No, it was fantastic. It is beautiful down there. It was 80-degree days. And we actually managed to get a little work done while we were down there, too.
We did, but no lie, I was already there in Miami for visiting our office there. And so we were like, well, we'll just stay the weekend and have Rue fly in. And so we did sneak in a quick little day trip to Key West because Rue hadn't been there. So, we had to. So
one of
anyway.
the fun things that Janel does besides compliance, though, is she oversees our website team down in our Miami office. So our RAS websites are based down there. And I got to figure out a way to get in on working on websites or something, because that Miami office is fantastic.
It is, and it's a fantastic team there.
Yes,
so
it is.
It's always exciting to go and see them. And not gonna lie, I had some Cuban food and some Cuban coffee and all that stuff too. So it was delicious. One thing too that I think was a first for us, though, back to car for a minute. The resort we were at had just recently added on some event space, and so this, I believe, was our first outdoor trade show.
Oh yeah, we were completely.
If you weren't watching, you did not see the face I just made. It was not a face of excitement, by the way.
First off, the meeting space is beautiful, but we were actually outside. Now, we were under the shade of the porch, so I guess you'd call it a porch shade, even though it's on a huge
veranda,
building.
whatever, yeah.
The veranda, that's right. So we looked at palm trees and got a little sweaty.
Yeah, it was sticky. Not gonna lie, it was sticky.
Didn't have a lot of electricity, but that's okay because we don't always need electricity. So we got to take advantage of the beautiful weather completely and have an outdoor trade show. Very interesting, very cool venue.
It was, and I will say, props to the car staff
Oh, yeah.
because it was a last minute change of venue where we were supposed to be at another resort in Key Largo, and they backed out of the contract, and so they scrambled and were able to pull this together. And so again, props to them um, for one, making sure we actually had an event, and two, making sure that the event was wonderful and still someplace warm because I'm pretty sure it was like 20 or something ridiculous like that the
Yeah, it
whole
was
time
really
we
cold
were
here.
down there. So,
Yep.
yeah, we didn't hate showing up on company meetings, with palm trees in the background. So,
The rest of the company doesn't like us very much, though, when we do stuff like that.
well,
But it's always fun to show.
I said it was sticky.
It was sticky.
So, well, no, I mean, I said on the company meeting, they're like, oh, they got palm trees. I'm like, it's sticky.
It
I'm
was
melting.
sticky. Yeah, it was
So,
sticky.
they didn't really care because we had ice and stuff. Anyway, so, we talked about being at CAR in Florida. From there, the next week, I went to NMHC, to their annual conference in Vegas, which always messes me up when I go 2 hours for whatever reason. I can't function well. But there was a lot of overlap in the conversation from CAR to NMHC. So forgive me if I don't remember who said what, because there was a lot of overlap. But there was a lot of talk about midterm elections and really the political outlook. So, talking about the midterms, the majorities in both chambers are slim, which, by the way, means it's going to be really hard to get a lot of stuff done. So, Washington being divided puts pressure on the administration to have robust regulatory agendas. And in response to that, the Republicans have said that they're going to conduct investigations and have strong oversight. So, again, you've got really, really slim margins. Along with that, you have over 80 new lawmakers who came into office. So if
Wow.
you think about advocacy groups, whether that's NMHC or it's CAR or it's NAMA, that's a lot of education on the industry challenges
Sure
and
is.
industry opportunities. So housing affordability is at the front and center of the agenda items because of the supply and demand imbalance. So that makes it a critical issue, or it continues to be a critical issue. So here's where it gets interesting. And you and I were chatting about this earlier today, Rue. The Biden administration is under a lot of pressure and has started putting together some plans that involve things like regulating rents, imposing conditions for eviction, and mandating acceptance of Section 8 vouchers, among some other proposals. So really the general consensus amongst the housing groups is that's really best dealt with at the state and the local levels. We don't need overarching mandates at a national level.
Well, and I think part of that is because when we talk about housing affordability, some people tend to confuse housing affordability with affordable housing.
Right. And they're two very
It's
different
two
things.
very different things.
Very different things. And really the concern here is the additional layers of regulation on top of what is already a robust set of laws
Yeah.
at both the federal, state, and local level. It doesn't really help renters, and it actually worsens housing availability. And so, what they said is what really helps is having a good, healthy supply of housing. That's what helps the affordability. So, again, knowing there's a lot of education, one of the things, actually, I think it was Cindy Chetty at NMHC made a comment that we have to have unified messaging from all of the housing groups,
That's
right?
right.
Otherwise, the staffers won't listen. If some group comes in and says one thing and somebody else comes in with a completely different message, they're going to move on to the next topic, right? Because we're all competing for their attention on various items. So the other thing that I heard was really the overall message should be, how do we make the programs more efficient? Not, oh, just give us more money, right? It's not about needing more funding necessarily, although somebody will probably be mad at me for saying that because I'm sure people always ask for more money. But it's really the how do we be more efficient with what we have? And being efficient does not mean making it more cumbersome from a regulatory perspective. So,
Well, and I'm going to plug these organizations really quickly because we're talking about needing to have a unified message. And so the way to ensure that there is a unified message across each organization, and I know that they are, from what I have seen, that they are working together in order to present a unified front. But that means that you guys need to get involved in these
Absolutely.
organizations, because these are the guys who are going up on the Hill and lobbying for you and doing what they can to make this fair, not just for the renters, but for the owner agents. And
Mhm.
so get involved. I know when we go to NAMA in a couple of weeks, there are Hill visits
Yep.
scheduled. So there's going to be the opportunity to go and speak to your Congress people on the Hill. And I'm sure the other agencies are doing the same thing. So
Yep.
get
And
involved.
yep. And even NAA Advocate is going on
That's
around the
right.
same time
Yeah.
as NAMA. Those tend to overlap, and they have Hill visits as well. So yes. And one thing too, before we kind of move off of this topic, they said it's actually less costly to the government to keep people in housing than the expense to Medicare to put them in nursing homes. So again, talking about let's make it more efficient. Let's make
Right.
sure there's enough supply, um, and go that route. So, um,
No rent control.
no, no, and
No
we
rent
we
control.
talked about that in our last podcast
Mhm.
too at NAMA, and we were talking then with management companies on both coasts,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
In some highly regulated areas, and they said that is not the solution by any means. So, yeah,
No, and I think most of you listening will agree with that.
yep. So, um, one of the other things too, so I know we talk a lot about compliance, right? Because that's the whole focus and why you guys are here. But I also think it's interesting, especially, coming off of the elections and really hearing this from various groups, is really looking at what's going on from a legislative perspective, right? So what's the outlook here? So I am actually going to shout out NMHC. When we were there in Vegas, if you're watching along, you can see this little flyer that I have, right? So they had these on the table. A wonderful little, you know, takeaway thing. It's their Washington update. And it was phenomenal. They did an amazing job putting this together. So I just want to hit some highlights from this. Um, I mentioned earlier the Biden administration. So they unveiled that two-part plan to, I'm using air quotes if you can't see me, protect renters and promote rental affordability. So that first part involves a challenge to advance what they're calling, again, air quotes, resident-centered management practices. And, NMHC said, well, yeah, we get it. By definition, we're resident-centered, right? There's no apartment industry without residents. So part two involves federal actions to pursue a renter's bill of rights. So I know that some groups worked with the White House in good faith for several months leading up to that. And what they wanted to mitigate were things like executive orders on national rent control, right?
And eviction.
Right, and federalized leases. Anyway, so having said that, the outcome is that there's still in general disappointment. That instead of focusing on the supply shortage, they're considering duplicative federal regulations that are already covered by state and local tenant and landlord laws, which we talked about. So, really, the and NMHC said it well, and it was funny because they said we've said it before, literally hundreds of times. They're saying it again. The best renter protection is an abundant supply of housing. So, really trying to focus our messaging around that. So, again, as we talked about Hill visits, if you're up in DC in March, attending, NAMA or NAA or whatever you may be attending, right? Make that message to your representatives.
Right. And I'm probably going to say this wrong. So this is really important. Janelle's going to correct me if I say it incorrectly, I promise. But I think I read somewhere that if the associations bring a message, it has to, they are not going to entertain a lot of things, right? It needs to be
Right.
a short, consistent message, or don't bring it. And so I will tell you the associations will collaborate on that, but then that is where you guys can come in on your own, reaching out to your Congress people, your representatives, and conveying your concerns to them. So,
Yep. Yep. And again, just looking at this flyer, because again, this was wonderful. And if you think about, bringing a very concise message, anything you have like this that you
yeah,
can leave behind,
right.
is wonderful. So other things, that the groups are watching are, the capital markets, the acceptance of Section 8 vouchers. I mentioned that earlier. They're keeping an eye on rent control, They're keeping an eye on eviction standards. And then tax policy is also a big item to keep an eye on. And I know they mentioned this at CAR too, that Congress is going to start looking at the 2017 Trump era tax cuts that are set to expire in 2025. So what happens there, and how does that impact the market? So, and they also talked about not only expanding the low income housing tax credit, but also establishing a middle income housing tax
Mhm.
credit. So again, we're all back to the supply and other ways to make things affordable. So, other things, other regulations that we know the administration is looking at: data security, broadband deployment, federal renter protections, resident screening, updated fair housing rules, energy and environmental rules as well.
Built in America by America, too.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like
I
that?
don't know.
I actually attended a webinar on that.
Okay. Look at you. That's awesome. She always tries to stump me in these. I'm like, all right, I just don't even know what to say to that, Rue.
What that
So,
means is that in affordable housing, where the government has regulations over it, they're talking about the whole when you when you're doing something, it needs to be built in America. So it's about keeping jobs here
yeah.
and keeping money here rather than it going somewhere else.
Yeah. Which, you know what, Rue? That was really, see, this is why we do this so well, because that's a really lovely segue into the market outlook that I was going to talk about, because they do talk about jobs and, yeah.
If you were watching my face, I was lost because I couldn't figure out where she was going with that.
Yeah, I was like, you sort of just segued into the
How
next
about that?
section. So yeah, so like I said, we talked about compliance changes that are coming soon. We talked a little bit about the political environment. So really going to NMHC again, they talked about the political environment, the legislative outlook, things like that. But I also thought it was very interesting. So they broke that conference up into three different things. There was a women's summit, which was fantastic. Had about 800 women that attended that. They had a strategic market outlook, which was super interesting. Lots of economists there talking about the state of the market. And then they had their annual meeting. So really some interesting takeaways. I will say this was the largest NMHC meeting ever. They had 8,500 people in Vegas at this conference. So
Well, and didn't you mention that you were surprised by the number of tax credit developers and lenders that you happened to encounter there?
I was. So, a couple of interesting things. I made this comment to Elizabeth Francisco, who we work with, who also attended that with me. Every single session I went to, every single panel discussion mentioned affordable housing. Every single one of them. And I was shocked because I just, living in the affordable world, I always thought, oh, NMHC just focuses on conventional and that market, but it doesn't.
I'm not really shocked though, and the reason why is because when I'm talking with prospects and encountering people, more and more people are getting into the tax credit segment of the market
Yeah.
because that's where the rehab money is.
Yep.
So they're doing that, and bless them, I encounter people on a daily basis that have just taken over a tax credit property and
Oh,
they've
bless
never
them.
had any experience. And so if you find yourself in that situation, shameless Resman plug, our software will take care of it for you, but that still does not negate the need to get some sort of training. And there are several groups out there that do tax credit compliance training. So
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen that for the past several years as well.
yeah.
And I mean, my heart just truly goes out to those people when they've been in conventional their entire career and they're like, and then our owner bought this thing. And so we don't really know what to do with it. Do you have software for it? And it's like, oh goodness, you guys, welcome. First of all, welcome to the affordable world. And yeah, get some training.
Yeah, and
Um,
don't let it be your company that I have a prospect calling me for saying we're taking over this property because the prior owner agent couldn't handle the compliance on this property. So get out there and get some training. We know that affordable, especially low income housing tax credits, is growing like crazy. So get out there and get some training. Reach out to us if you're looking for some places that you can find it. We'll be happy to connect you.
Yeah, don't let it be intimidating. I know
Yeah.
we hear that even in our own company. People are like, "Oh, affordable, scary. There's so many rules." And you're like, yeah, but once you get used to it, it all makes sense. So get some
There's
training.
more acronyms than there are rules.
Yeah, probably so. Probably so.
All right.
I know we try to put together our own little thing about that. So I do have some notes from the strategic outlook because again, just thinking about the status of the market and where things are, I was really surprised at the number of developers that were there. And then, like we said, the bankers, um, the lenders. So one of the things that I actually thought was kind of cool about this conference is in one of the ballrooms, it was a huge ballroom and they had all these tables set up with numbers on them. And I joked that it was speed dating for the trade show. So there was an app and you could say, "Hey, I'm interested in networking on affordable housing or, whatever the thing may be, right? Technology, whatever." And you mark in the app which sessions you want to go to. So it kind of talks about your schedule. Well, all of a sudden you start getting these messages. It's like, so and so from this company would like to meet with you for 20 minutes to discuss this at table 14 at 3:15. Do you want to accept? Yes or no? So we were like, this is great. So
That's pretty cool.
so I had some speed dating one day. So that was fun. But one of the things I'm going to shamelessly talk about Resman here for a minute too. One of the things that I thought was so interesting was a group of owners who said, "Hey, we're seeing Resman more and more, and just tell us about what you do. We want to learn more about you." So
That's fantastic.
yeah, so we had a fun little speed dating session on that.
Oh,
So
my little trade show travels last year is paying off, huh?
yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Rue. Appreciate it. Thanks. Totally from your Reelapalooza, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was about to say Rulapalooza 2024 coming up.
Yeah. But it was interesting. And again, there was a lot of talk about affordable housing and things like that too. But it was also really interesting because we had several clients there. So seeing clients sitting with bankers and trying to get deals, started. They're certainly not going to do a deal in 20 minutes of speed dating, or at least I hope not. But at least that momentum and was good to see because one of the things they talked about, and I know we saw this, was that new acquisition slowed down dramatically in Q4. And I know we saw it just from the number of sites that our customers who normally are in rapid growth mode and are acquiring lots of sites, we saw it slow down as well. So
But there is money out there.
there
It's
is
just a little harder to get.
there is, and the thing that was interesting is they said there's more buyers than sellers right now, and a lot of it is they're watching interest rates and cap rates and all of that. So new construction starts are delayed or paused due to capital constraints, but it varies by market. There was an entire session just about what markets are hot and which ones aren't in specific cities too, which is super interesting to me. I totally geeked out on the whole data part. That was very exciting. And lucky for us, the Sun Belt is performing very well, which is where Resman tends to have a lot of clients.
Well, let's be honest, it's where we really like to travel because it's warm.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's beaches.
Sometimes.
We like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you can make that work, by all means. So that was interesting. I talked about new construction. Oh, one of the things too, because again, they cover multifamily, but other areas, they're very bullish. And this was across several panels. They're very bullish on multifamily and industrial, which I thought was interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So, industrial, like warehouse and storage and things like that. Not so much office space, I guess.
Oh, not so much the office
Yeah.
space. No. They said the office space is going to get really interesting when all the current leases start to expire and to see what happens there. And they said, hey, could we repurpose those? And they're like, yeah, I don't know. That's really expensive. And so I don't know that that's going to happen. One of the things that I thought was really just funny, they were talking about retail. And they were like, well, is there more retail being developed? And they're like, no, retail's being under demolished. So
Under demolished?
yeah, they were joking.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I get
Just
it.
clicked with her.
Yeah, I get it.
Yay, have another sip.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I wanted to say bum, 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 building implosion, but
Bump, bump, bump.
I like to watch those on the news.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe they will, but it'll be retail if that happens.
That's okay.
The other thing that was interesting too, again, lots of good things to say about multifamily. But the other thing with a lot of movement, and we started seeing this about a year or so ago with some of our clients, is the build to rent space.
Ooh, we were just having a conversation about that yesterday among some friends of mine and I.
Yeah. So the build to rent, if you're not familiar with it, it is neighborhoods that are homes that are built to rent. So if you think about having an apartment community and you just lay it out flat
And don't attach it.
and don't attach it,
But you have all the 1-bedroom floor plans the same, the
the
2 bedrooms, the 3 bedrooms.
Yep.
They're just single family, so they don't have any attached walls, and they usually have a little yard.
You usually have a little yard. So just again, think about flattening out that property. So there's a lot of build to rent happening. So they also said too, right now, you and I have talked about labor shortages, and we've also talked about supply chain. So that came up briefly too. So the update there is more labor available right now due to the slowdown with home builders, which by the way was ironic because
That's interesting.
Well, totally ironic because while we were having our conference with 8,500, multifamily operators, the home builders were having a conference and there were 70,000 of them there in the same hotel. It was amazing. So, I guess maybe that's, I don't know. I guess the building has slowed down, so they all went to Vegas. So that's where they were. Supply chain. So good news there. They said they're starting to see relief in the Southwest and the Southeast, but not on either coast yet.
Wow.
Yeah. And here's the thing that was interesting. Do you know what is a big issue right now in Florida from a supply perspective? It's a trick question. I didn't tell her ahead of time. Totally put her on the spot.
Chickens?
What are we building with chickens?
I don't know.
Okay, we're turning your mic off for a minute.
No, but I'm just thinking about how hard it is to get chicken right now. So, it's a supply chain issue. I couldn't help it.
Okay, funny side note, when I was hosting brunch for my son's basketball team, I had to use like 28 eggs to make these 2 casseroles. And I was like, guys,
Ooh,
this is like
out a loan?
I was like, this is your $1,000 brunch. Anyway, all right, now that we've talked about chickens.
I don't know if I can recover from
I don't know if you can either. It's like, refocus, Rue, refocus. It was a C word, though, but it's concrete. Concrete is an issue. You were so close. Concrete chickens, you're so close. Jesus, I don't even know what to say to that. And beyond that, steel prices have come down for whatever that's worth because I feel like I've totally lost the crowd now that Rue did the whole chicken thing. So,
No, that's actually really good news because we need a lot of steel. If we could just figure out how to get concrete now, that would be great.
And more chicken and eggs. So there's that. Okay. So the other thing that I found really interesting is, people wouldn't talk about what I'm now referring to as the R word. No, don't even answer, Rue, because I'm afraid of what's going to come out of your mouth. No, don't even.
I'm not going to say anything.
And the R word wasn't Rue. It was recession. So people were very, very reluctant. I know she's like, I was going to say that. I don't buy it. But recession. So they were very reluctant to say recession. They're like, oh, we're in something. We don't have to label it, but we're in something. What most of the economists were pretty unified in their messaging. They said things are going to be bumpy. It's going to be slow, and it may start to turn in the second half of this year. So they said that they were expecting 2 adjustments to interest rates. Ironically, one happened that same day. And then they're expecting another one. And I think they said maybe around August, but I can't remember because I've slept since then and I've been on the road and I didn't know day or time. So I don't know if it was August or not. But they did say they expect one more adjustment. And they said generally, once the Fed stops playing with the interest rates, it takes about 9 months for things to kind of level out. So we are hoping that things start to smooth out. We're hoping to see more transactions. Again, the interest was there. There were a lot of buyers. They're really just waiting to see what happens with interest rates. So that was really interesting to sit and listen to. I'm going to leave you with one other fun fact about NMHC. So they just had a change in leadership. Their president, Doug Bibby, just retired. And their new president coming in, Sharon Wilson Janel, has a background in affordable housing.
Well, how about that?
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. So that was exciting. Again, I told you they talked about affordable housing every time I turned around, and there it was. So really, really an awesome conference. It was my first time to go to that annual conference, and it was really interesting. Lots of takeaways, tons of good knowledge.
Maybe we could have a podcast there.
Maybe down in the speed dating area.
Yeah. Actually, I was just going to add one thing onto the talk about the R word. And what I'm seeing is even if this something does turn into the R word, what I'm seeing recently is that they feel like it won't be as bad as what was originally anticipated. So
Yeah. Yeah. They did say that. So, the other fun part of going to these conferences, so, I told you we were in Florida, then I went to Vegas, and then I went back to Florida, and all of this happened like 4 back-to-back weeks. Super fun. But, our parent company, Inhabit, had our leadership conference out in Florida, and so I had the benefit of listening to some really great guest speakers, there, but also at NMHC. So NMHC, the guest speaker was Coach K.
oh, I love
Yeah.
him.
It was really good, and it was so funny because that man could not sit still in a chair for an hour-long session. He kept, like, getting up and, like, pacing, and I'm like, "Dude,
Just like he was on when you coached.
you're not on the court." But, yeah, but like he did. Yeah, he couldn't sit still. He was up and pacing, and he was really passionate, and he was actually a really good speaker, like, to the point where and I have a son that plays basketball, so I'm into basketball anyway, but, he was really good, and so it was interesting listening, to him and then the other speaker I'll talk about in a minute, talk about leadership. So again, we've talked about compliance, we've talked about the legislative update, we've talked about, like a political outlook, we've talked about a market outlook, so we're gonna leave you with a couple little nuggets about leadership. So, one of the things he talked about, and think about this in terms of your teams, that you work with, talent makes other talent better. And he talked about that. He goes, I always coached my best players the hardest and expected them to bring up the rest of the team. So think about that with your own team members.
Dang, no wonder my boss is so hard on me.
I know, right? I totally thought about you during that. I was like, well, there you go. Yeah, made me wonder about mine. But anyway, and then Coach K said the 4 most powerful words are I believe in you. So thinking about telling your team members that you believe in them, you have confidence, really empowering them to get things done. I thought that was kind of cool. So then at our Inhabit Leadership Conference, we had a guest speaker, and I apologize if I mispronounce her name, Robin Benincasa. And Robin is an Eco Challenge racer. I had no idea what that was. Then she showed us video.
Well, I won't use the term that I usually use, but she's bad.
You can say it. It's okay.
She's badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes up for your chicken comment.
Okay.
You can say that. But when she explained what Eco Challenge racing is, I'm like, this sounds terrible, and I don't want to do it.
Why would you?
It sounded terrible. But also, I'm super intrigued, and I found 1 season of it on Amazon, so I'm going to watch. But again, she talked about, teams and playing to each other's strengths. Because if you think about it on a team, everybody's got different strengths and weaknesses. And hopefully you've assembled a team where, someone's strength offsets your weakness. And so it was really interesting. She said, when you're putting a team together, do you put your 5 best team members or your best 5? So you could have 5 people who are really great at something, but you need your best 5 that all work together and really complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. So again, back to leadership and putting together teams, think about that. Who are your best 5?
That's pretty interesting.
I know. I feel like that's pretty deep for a, what day is it? Monday? For Monday afternoon. That's pretty deep. All right. So, like we said, tons of information. We've been a lot of places, but we have a lot of places to go to.
Yeah, we do.
We have a lot coming up. So, where can you find us? Well, it may surprise you to know that we're traveling again as early as tomorrow. So, we are heading to Austin tomorrow. We are doing a lunch and learn on Wednesday with our friend Jenny Da Silva, who is going to talk about.
Well, first, where's Jenny from?
Da Silva Housing
Solutions.
Yes.
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 I just wanted to be sure that everybody knew where she was from when we mentioned.
See, I just assume everybody knows Jenny.
Well, they probably
she
do,
was a guest
but
on our podcast a lot. But yes, Jenny.
Yes, Jenny.
And she's going to talk about our new
Hotma.
topic, Hotma. Hotma.
Hotma.
So, also, I'm excited if you live in the Texas area and if you travel from anywhere from Dallas to Austin to San Antonio and Houston, if you have not taken the Von Lane bus, you are missing out. So this will be our second bus adventure. And I know it sounds weird to say, oh, we're taking a bus. This bus is amazing. It is a luxury bus. Wi-Fi. You can work all the way
Oh,
there
it's
and back.
fantastic.
It's like you're sitting in big recliners and you're all comfy. And so anyway, shout out to Von Lane. Thank you.
The other thing I was going to say about our Lunch and Learn event, though, we are really excited. First off, Jenny is amazing when it comes to HUD topics, so we're really excited to have her host a session with us. But we know that probably everybody did not get an invitation simply because the space is a little crowded. So if you did not and you still want to have an understanding of what we talked about, or if you're interested in being on the next invitation list, just shoot either Janelle or I a note and in LinkedIn, and we'll be sure that you are included for the next one.
Yep. Because this is the first, but it won't be the last.
It won't be the last.
So then when we get back to Austin, we then turn right back around in about a week's time, and we are headed to DC for the NAMA winter meeting.
NAMA!
Yay! March 8th through 10th. Love that meeting. Then Rue in April gets to go to the Carolina Car meeting in Myrtle Beach. So, notice the beach theme. She volunteered for that one.
Beach. Of course I volunteered for that.
Yeah. But then in May, she turns around and goes to Sama, Tennessee in Murfreesboro, which is not at a beach, but she's going anyway.
Well, and I know that we're probably going to have another podcast before then. However, I can't let June go without saying that we will be at NAA and we will be doing a live podcast of Cocktails in Compliance at
so
NAA.
Excited.
So we're so excited.
We're so excited. So we submitted, I think, 4 different sessions or something like that. And Rue and I got selected. We are super excited.
We're super excited. We've got a panel of all-stars with us. So we're very excited about that.
Yep. So yay.
Yay.
But before we get there, we have one other event. Little Resmania. So if you missed that last year, that is Resman's User Conference. It is in Plano, Texas. It is May 22nd through 25th. If you are a Resman customer, we expect to see you there. If you are someone who just thinks Resman's awesome, or you want to come hang out with me and Rue.
Yeah, because we'll be doing a podcast there too, and we've got some great guest panelists for that podcast as well.
Yes, we do. So you can check that out on our website. It's not too late to register. We've got some awesome content. We extended the conference by a day
for the audience.
And you might get a contact. By might, I mean you will.
Yeah.
So, a couple other things Rue and I are working on with NAMA. We are working on the Affordable 100 list. That's a project that Rue and I participate in every year, where we compile a lot of data, working with some others in the space, and publish the NAMA Affordable 100 list. And then
the survey is out there. If you feel like you should be a part of that and did not get a copy of the survey, again, please reach out. We'll be happy to get you connected to that. And look, it's always very interesting to see the outcome of the list. So even if you feel like you may just touch the end of that, go ahead and submit, because sometimes you're surprised by who ends up making that list.
Yep. And there are separate lists for just tax credits and just rural housing. So again, if you're rural housing and you think, oh, I'm not big enough, you can probably make the rural housing list if you don't make the whole top 100. So by all means, submit that data. And then what's going on with the Ed Foundation, Rue?
Well, the scholarship applications have been sent out. So it is online, or it is open application. If you feel like you have a student or an adult who may qualify for assistance, education assistance, and you don't have an application, again, please reach out to me and I'll point you to the application page. It's one of my very favorite things that I do. I'm very proud to be a part of it, and it's very humbling when you get to meet the people who win the scholarships and see what life-changing experiences they have. So, and if you don't have anybody that that can qualify to get a scholarship, maybe you'd like to participate in helping them get help them put a scholarship together. So please reach out to me if you'd like more information on that.
Yep. And so I feel like we have just talked nonstop for like 2 hours, although I know it's not 2 hours, but
it's been about an hour though.
But again, it's been a minute since we've done this, so we had lots of information to share with you guys. We missed you. We hope you missed us too. If you are not connected with us, connect with us on LinkedIn. Please check out our Resman website. We post links to our podcast there, as well as a lot of blog content that our marketing team works really hard on to give you lots of other information about the industry.
That's right.
And you can find Cocktails and Compliance powered by PropTalk there. You can also find it. I know, right? I always mess that up. And we're also on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else that you get your podcast information. And we just appreciate you joining us today. And we hope to see you soon.
Bye, guys. See y'all out there.
See ya.